Hello, everyone, and welcome to the stream. I am your host, Nessie, the captain of this ship, and today we are going to be doing another lore dump episode. I have a lot of lore gremlins with me today who are going to help us build the Sanguinus universe. It should be fun. This should be a lot of enjoyment. We're gonna just throw ideas back and forth and hopefully get somewhere by the end of the day. That's all I hope. So let me bring them all in. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, hello. I'm gonna be munching on snacks like this whole time. But yeah. Today is lore. Heavy lore. Everyone's in agreement that lore is fun. Yes.
Well, most of the time it is.
Most of the time. I know I had to cut last session short because of situations that popped up. But today we will do more. So, let me bring us all in. I'm also going to share my screen to everyone. They also now have the link to the document so they can see if I'm typing or writing. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, where were we when we last left off? We have a lot here. I know.
I still have that same avatar.
You do. Your crazy avatar.
I mean, it's kind of funny looking though. So looking at Lion currently.
I have Discord pulled up. Don't worry. I'm munching on brownie brittle. I love this shit. But we talked about. We went into the whole backstory of a character.
Yep. That was off stream though.
That was all off stream.
And it's quite a lot more than I remember, but yeah.
We got up to the whole reasoning why he is the first vampire. But we won't go past that much. I'm gonna try not to crunch into the microphone. So, to go into detail, the link is in the chat, Lion.
Utilize it.
It's probably because you don't have the information.
Oh, right.
There you go. We're not gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
We're not gonna talk about the fact that I totally forgot to give him the link. Or I totally forgot to give him a role.
Yeah, you can make up for it now. Yeah.
I gave it to you now. I am a brat. Thank you for calling me what I am. Anyways, so we kind of have the vampires done. Well, is this enough for the vampires?
Or
Do you
at least
think?
as a lore basis, like what?
That
Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to the first war that everything that caused current times to be the way they are.
I think that's enough on that one particular vampire.
Might have to put some more into vampires on the whole.
Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously they have some form of society organized, kind of.
Right.
But how did they get there?
How did they get there?
And when, more importantly, since we have quite the length of history available.
Yeah, so what we need to find, what we need to do. Give me a pen link. That's not. How did the vampires become an organized society? One of our questions. And another question is, when did they become an organized
Don't need to spell it out. You can just say
society?
how and when.
Yeah, how and when?
Now, as for when, that's the easier question, I would say.
Yeah, when? So we kind of made this agreement that, and I think I kind of talked about this. Yeah, how many? So Levi created everyone else technically, or actually, let me specify this. Or Remicus, sorry, wrong person. Did Levi create more Remicuses? Remici?
I don't know. Well, there's no plural for a name.
Technically speaking, though, Remikai would be the plural because
If Remicus were not a person, then yes, that would be the correct plural. But since person or people do not have plural forms,
What? How? JHs?
yeah, you can add an S as the standard plural, but they do not have specific ones, yeah? Since, normally people are very much singular.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we can have multiple vampires being created, but none of them surviving to any length where they are significant.
Hmm.
Like, a lot of people died in those times.
Yeah. So.
I feel like someone needs to have burned for Remix to figure out the sun hurts.
100%. Because he doesn't
Yeah, I mean, but
exactly
then again-
have.
Honestly, however, if you're going to go through the effort of creating a vampire, you're probably going to give that vampire like a few notes so they don't immediately go and explode.
Oh.
Of course, if this is the first vampire, where would those notes have came from?
Right.
Well, if you're creating the first vampire, you probably
Yeah,
have at least an inkling of what you're doing. And if you proudly managed to create the very first vampire and you pat yourself on the shoulder all proud, and then maybe you go tell that vampire, oh yeah, maybe don't go into the sun. So you don't have to start all over again,
So.
Also, it's the question how lethal is sunlight? Is it instantly lethal, or is it just incredibly uncomfortable and very lethal if you stay in there for more than a few seconds?
burn, baby,
Yeah,
burn.
Yeah, but like again, is
do
it
these
instant or is it
vampires get
slightly
dusted or
staged?
do they combust?
Yeah, and is it instant combustion or is it combustion over a time span of like 20 seconds?
I say combustion over time.
Yeah, because then you can take one step, immediately start burning, and jump back into the shadow. And then you've probably learned the lesson immediately.
But I feel like Levi would, or Remicus would find that out. But then he would test it on other vampires.
He might. Or, well, not initially. At first, he'd probably be satisfied with the knowledge that sunlight bad. Again, this is him still being a normal person. More or less.
More or less.
The whole callousness stuff would probably come later. So eventually, he'd be sitting there, kind of bored, and think, you know what, I never actually tested the limits of this. And then he'd find some unfortunate vampire and test the limits. And he'd probably test them quite a lot over time, because whenever a new invention is made that could have some effect, well, you have to test it, right?
Right.
Like, once people started understanding the science behind sunlight, you could go, like, which part of sunlight is the dangerous part? Like, can we filter out specific frequencies? Or shit like that, you know? Science.
You make like an SPF.
Yeah, or just windows that filter out the applicable frequencies so you can actually look outside during the day and not explode.
Sunglasses windows.
Yeah, basically.
Jesus. I'm down to have that.
Because, I mean, if vampires figure out how to neutralize the sunlight, they would absolutely flex by having the ceiling of their meeting room just be glass. Right?
Does the
Yeah.
meeting room have glass on top?
I mean, again, if you're a vampire and you finally figured out how to neutralize the sun, you are going to flex about it.
And Levi 100% is the person to flex.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't even need to do it himself. The vampires are going to do that on their own because they finally conquered the damn thing.
I was about to say, yeah.
And then they're going to sit in the sunlight looking all smug. Like, even though the vampire hunters don't know, like, they're still going to be smug about it.
Of course, that does present the risk of if someone gets in there and breaks the glass.
Yeah, but then it could just be, like, directly above them. Vampires tend to be pretty fast. They can all just roll backwards into the shadow, and then they'll be fine again. I mean, yeah, kind of undignified, but, you know, survival and all.
That would make an interesting vampire hunter raid.
Also, again, this is, like, essentially their headquarters. Presumably, vampire hunters shouldn't be getting anywhere close to it.
Yeah, because there has to be guards.
Yeah, and I mean,
preventing that
glass
shit.
roofs aren't exactly rare nowadays, so...
So, we are deciding. Remicus created vampires after himself.
Yeah, you probably had to figure out how that works first. But
Well, he probably
Actually,
had
excellent question.
bloodlust.
how does vampire creating work in this universe?
Oh, okay.
Because there's multiple ways in the classical
How
interpretations
to
of vampires.
vampire.
How to make a vampire, rather.
to
How to vampire includes things like how to drink
Make-
blood, but how to make a vampire.
Vampirism 101.
That's so dumb. That's so stupid. The fact that we did that. Okay. So, I gotta decide on. I have to decide this, don't I? So, bottom line. Must ingest blood.
Ingest is spelled with a G. You're welcome. Yes.
So yeah. Bottom line, you have to ingest blood.
Is it the classic thing of you have to ingest blood and then die? Because that's a bit of a classic in that sense.
Hello, Taco. Ah. I feel like that's the case. Then die.
Right. Now, next question. How exactly did he figure out that that's how it works? Because, while we have the benefit of vampire tropes,
Accident.
he doesn't. So how would someone ingest his blood and then die in a timely manner so he's still there to realize what happened?
So, he accidentally drained someone.
I cannot find where in the document you are.
Vampires.
Vampires.
creatures,
Scroll
vampires.
down. Yeah, scroll down.
At the very bottom. Okay,
Make
bottom.
me refresh the thing, because it's not there.
It is saying it's loading. It's syncing. So, let me update the sync. It is now up
Sync?
to date. The
Oh,
sync.
sync in the sense of synchronize. I want like in sense of kitchen sync. I'm like, why the fuck would you need to update the sync? Yeah, like if he accidentally drained someone, how did the blood get into them first?
How would blood get into you?
Yeah, that's the thing. It sort of has to be done on purpose, which sort of implies that you already know how this works.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's one particular scenario I've seen once where some like a vampire was currently hunting and sort of playing with their food, but their food was particularly feisty and bit them back.
That could have been what happened.
And then, like, vampire obviously does not like being bitten, so they immediately snapped their food's neck, and we were just like, oh, damn it, that was kind of a waste. But then the food started getting back up, and they were like, what shit, no. And, yeah,
So,
somebody knows what I'm talking about. Respect, but...
yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of the most likely way this would happen if you
Food
don't
is-
already know how it works.
So, you had blood loss.
How old does Remicus get before that happens?
Huh?
What?
How old does Remicus get before he accidentally discovers he can make more vampires?
I think very
Excellent
early
question.
on. Because
Well,
the
again-
biggest thing is bloodlust. So, he's realizing, fuck, I'm hungry. So, he chases human. Because he doesn't understand why he needs the blood.
He just knows.
He just knows, it's instinctual. So he chases the human, needs blood. Captures human. Human fights back. So then Human bites.
Yeah, he gets a non-consensual love bite, and on
And
both sides.
he gets angry.
Yeah, because if you're in bloodlust, you're not exactly in a
Good
rational
mood.
mindset.
He then drains human dry.
Actually, a sort of line raises a good point, but not for the reason he probably thinks. Does animal blood work for vampires?
I asked this question yesterday. I did not get an answer.
No, you did not.
Then let's get an answer now.
So 100% animal blood works. So animal blood 100% works. However, it's not the preferred method. And on
Basically,
top
it
of
doesn't taste good.
it doesn't taste as good as what
And
human
it probably
blood.
isn't as nourishing.
Correct. There are groups of vampires who have chosen to work with the vampire hunters or the creature hunters, the society, and they have chosen to go the non-human blood route, or they work with blood banks and get their supply that way. However, this is the council we are talking. They are purists at heart. They believe that humans are below them.
Yeah, they're supremacists, essentially.
They are kind of supremacists. Hello, everyone who is in chat. Hello, hello, hello. Just want to check up to make sure all levels are good. Seems like everything's good. Yeah. Oh, I clicked the button. I clicked the button I was not supposed to click. Ah!
What happened now?
I opened up things that I wasn't supposed to open up. God damn it. You're gonna see my Origin account. Nope. Away. Okay. So he's upset. So I think at this point, this was just pure bloodlust. This was a problem of he didn't know how to control it yet. On top of it. So he has no control. Okay, so he chases a human, needs the blood. But he doesn't realize why. So he captures the human fights. Human bites him. Anger ensues.
Human fight, human bites. It's sort of funny
Human
how that
fights.
rhymes.
Yeah. He drains the human dry, but he's upset about what has happened. Because he is essentially upset over the fact that he's just killed a human.
Also,
But
nobody likes losing control over their mental faculties. That's generally an
Correct.
uncomfortable experience.
5 minutes later,
And especially, like, if you have
Human
the
growth.
beginnings of, like, a prideful complex in you, it's especially uncomfortable.
slowly waking up. Which then gets the whole questions of, oh, huh? The question
Yeah.
marks.
Now, is Remicus a responsible father and actually takes care of his unintentional progeny, or does he just sort of go, huh, interesting, and leave them to discover all that shit themselves?
I think in the beginning he watched after them. However, after creating several, he lost track.
I'd also imagine a human wouldn't exactly be thrilled to have just died. So
Right?
there might be some issues on that front, so he might have had to kill one or two of them immediately after creation because they were just angry.
Right. So,
Which would also contribute to the fact that he might eventually just stop sticking around.
this might have
after turning.
happened within the first year of his life. Potentially. So very early on this started happening.
Definitely has to be before you can control the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he can't exactly control his facilities. At when do you say that he starts experimenting?
With what specifically?
Anything like the sensitivities vampires might have.
I'd honestly give him like a decade or so before he, like, once he sort of found his groove with his new abilities and all that, he start trying to push the limits. But first he has to, like, find a solid base. And if you've just been turned into the first vampire and you have been given exactly zero instruction on how it works,
Yeah.
it's gonna take you a while to stop reeling.
So, do we want to say 50 years? Give him a few decades?
No, we might. And like for him to start properly experimenting, not just like accidentally finding things out.
So 50 years, or at 50 years, starts to experiment.
Yeah, at that point, also again, 50 years is not a short time frame, so he's probably a lot more confident in himself at that point.
So
because he is essentially, at that point, he would be a senior citizen and pretty fucking old already by standards back then.
yeah, so he's now having to find ways to hide himself.
And again, like he sort of sticks out back then.
Correct.
Not just because of the vampirism, so that doesn't make it easier.
I'd like to point out, Luca had a good idea in the text chat.
Sensitivity. Holy fuck. Oh. Oh, I like that. Because I never
Right, so,
specified if it was a girl or a boy.
Wait, hold up, what?
The human first lover? Question mark? So, solidarity.
I mean, also, like, that would kind of make sense if whoever was the first person he turned actually knew him, sort of, already.
Yeah, so
Because
maybe.
that would radically dial down, like, the anger upon real awakening, because, well, it wasn't just a random person who decided to kill you, it was someone you personally knew. So you'd be like, why the fuck did you do that? And since
How mu-
Chemicals somewhat offer an explanation to that.
How much does this person know about Remicus's condition before it happens?
I don't think
Probably-
none.
Yeah, like, I think even at a pretty young age, you'd be smart enough to know to keep that sort of stuff to yourself.
So it potentially could have been he came out of the temple and was like, "Hi guys, I'm here." And everyone freaked out because he's supposed to be sacrificed. Why are you alive? And then he would be chased out of the town for being like a witch or something.
Yeah, or just apparently he was spared, so they're like, oh, probably important somehow, I guess. And like, you do not question the gods and shit.
Right.
If he is alive, who are we to tell them differently?
Yeah, so it could go either way.
And I mean, yeah, if we presume his sort of character stayed the same throughout his existence, he'd probably want to keep a low profile anyway. Since that's very much what he's doing now. Yeah, like, I wouldn't go that far as to say they would see him as a god, rather just he's special somehow, probably.
Yeah, prophet.
But since both he and the deity aren't exactly going to elaborate, people can only really presume. And again, like, eventually people will sort of just forget about it. Except, maybe they'll wonder why some people are dying, but they won't immediately point to the person who didn't die when they were supposed to be sacrificed, because that's a bit of a leap in logic, isn't it?
Right.
Like, he essentially just, since he can't come out during the day, he'd essentially just become a recluse, and people would be like, oh, it's kind of weird of him, but,
Yeah, that's kind of odd.
you know, someone's always awake at night, so it might as well be him. Night guards have existed since the dawn of humanity, and someone has to do it.
Right. What other things would he experiment? This, of course, is later. Some of this stuff will be later. The biggest one, I think, would be the sun sensitivity.
No, so we can start with simpler stuff, again, for going for vampire tropes. Do they have enhanced regeneration?
Minder. But the Maya vampires aren't important here.
Yeah, Nessie, I'm asking you. Hint, hint.
Thinking. Brain go burr. Do they?
Yeah, because
I guess they do. Yeah, because oh god, Ambrose got his arm cut off.
Yeah, so he'd probably figure that out on his own pretty easily, but
Yeah.
then experiment around with it a little bit, but not too much, since, you know, it itself, and figuring out the limits of your regeneration is pretty dangerous.
It is
So he-
nowhere near as fast as my vampires, though.
But
No,
still,
it takes
it's
months, if not
regeneration.
weeks.
So still, it is noticeable, shall we say.
But here's the thing. Remicus is pretty much instant.
Ooh.
Yeah, which would make it even more noticeable when he accidentally cuts himself and is just immediately
It's
gone
healed.
again.
Yeah, it's instantly healed. However,
So he'd get really suspicious really quickly.
current times is several generations into vampirism.
Which, slight tangent though, would mean that Remicus has to be really fucking careful to not get injured in the presence of the other vampires. Or they might
Correct.
figure out that he is a lot older than he looks.
Correct.
But yeah, that's one of the things. Otherwise, I presume vampires have some
Remicus-
form of enhanced strength.
So Remicus is omnipotent in a way. He kind of has a lot going for him because he, of course, is the first vampire. Current vampires. To go further in. The older you are, the stronger your power. So, for example, Lena Sanguinus is 1,000 years old. Ambrose is 700 years old. And Cecilia is 300 years old. So looking at these three,
Right. So, however, wouldn't that sort of mean there are two factors involved in a vampire's power? Which the first being how far removed are they from the primordial vampire, and
Correct.
second, how old are they?
yes and no. So
Because being old does not necessarily mean you are closer to the primordial vampire. Because nothing's stopping Remicus from still turning people in the modern day. If he feels like it.
Remicus does not
So-
turn anyone. He stopped doing that a while ago.
Yeah, but technically nothing's stopping him. That's
Nothing
just
is
what I'm saying.
stopping him though. So
Yeah.
I should. The biggest thing is how far removed are you?
And then you still get more powerful with age, presumably.
Correct.
Which, what does that mean for Remicus exactly? If he's already essentially all powerful.
So this, Jessica, is based off of the Sanguinus series. So we have created 3 audios as well as a bunch of different improvs based off of this world. And now we are expanding it so various people within the project are able to start doing more audios based off of it. Fairly recently, I would say, Zeta and I decided that we were going to do crossovers between these 2 worlds. However, the further we got into talking about the crossover type stuff, we realized maybe we should talk more about the lore and kind of get things situated so that we can better explain what's going on. And that's kind of what we've been doing, is we've been trying to get my thoughts onto paper.
Basically, this is just us brainstorming live.
Yes. But yeah, there are 2 factors to vampirism. How far along you are and how old you are. Or how far removed you are. So, Lena is actually, weirdly enough, a few generations removed from Ramachus. Many, if not all, the current council are many generations removed from him.
Yeah, because again, like he's 10 times as old as they are. Obviously, they are.
Correct. Yeah.
As even if we assume like every vampire lives a whole 700 years before they turn the next generation, that's still a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like with some quick maths, that would be about 12 to 13 generations between Ramachus and Lena.
Mm-hmm.
If we presume 700 years before they turn someone, which I don't know what exactly would be the standard there, but I think 700 is a bit generous.
Right.
So probably a lot more generations, which then would also explain why the powers drop rather drastically when compared to Ramachus, because there's so much space.
And you know what's irony? Ramachus never thought about having sex with someone.
Didn't we decide that one of the current members of
Vivienne.
the council was
Yes,
his daughter?
Vivienne.
Yeah. But he doesn't necessarily realize it. Or I should say, he knows about it. But that's the only one he knows. That's Vivienne.
Yeah, like he might have left some at some point in history. It's not like he.
His protege.
I mean, he's not exactly Genghis Khan with his fucking half a globe worth of ancestors of descendants, but a few are probably running around.
I forget how old Phoenix is. 21? I think he's 21. Is he 21? It's bad when you don't know your own friend's age.
Is who 21?
Either way.
Irrelevant.
Irrelevant. The bottom line is, Ambrose didn't realize that if you have sex with a woman, you get half-breeds. Because Ambrose is an idiot. Or Lena technically is, because she never explained the birds and the bees. Oh, I meant to go through here. Ice powers.
Random thought though, for like why Ramachus doesn't have that many descendants. I mean, the guy is pretty fucking old, but like,
Okay, but if he had one descendant even 1,000 years ago, that's going to spread out.
that would compound, which is the thing, which is why I would say he didn't have like maybe a handful throughout his entire existence.
Did we ever
'Cause-
decide what Ambrose's powers were?
Did
Ask Phoenix, it's his character.
Phoenix! Buddy, where are you?
Didn't we have notes about this sort of stuff?
No, I do not.
Hold up. Do we have this thing here?
Help! Because we haven't delved into what Phoenix's powers are either. Because also,
No one.
Phoenix.
No. Actually, there's this one document that says Ambrose has the ability of hypnotism.
Oh, that's right.
All
But
of
he's
my
not great
vampires
at
have
it.
that by
He's not
default.
great at it. Wait, that's what it says in the document, all right? I didn't write the damn thing.
Oh, it's a lot, Kitty Garden. There's so much. So we get like a question in and we get like 3 more questions pop up. That's kind of how it's been.
Yeah, that's how lore building works. Except when you're alone, you can do that in the solitude of your own head, where it's pretty quickly because there's no latency. Whereas here, we have to actually communicate with other people, so it takes a while.
Yes.
I know, horror of horrors.
But yeah.
Can I just copy and paste in the thing I gave you a couple days ago, rather than having to draw it out again?
You can 100% copy and paste it. Ah! I clicked. Shut up.
You clicked indeed.
Shush. Shush you.
Now click some more things so it comes back.
Come
There
on.
we go.
Share the goddamn screen. There we go. I know I closed so many shit by accident.
Anyway, back on topic.
So
Okay,
yeah.
I literally just random thought, like, what if Ramicus is just sort of asexual? Because then obviously it wouldn't really occur to him to have children all that much. And will sort of explain why the dude has remained more or less celibate throughout 10,000 fucking years.
That's true. Because I feel like Vlad, as much as it is Zeta's character, has shacked up everyone possible.
Which, again, if we follow that minor plot thread we had like a few days ago, if Vlad and Ramicus actually met each other rather early, they probably would have gotten along kind of well like that, because just, you know, the whole opposites attract thing.
Yeah. But
'Cause
also,
Vlad is like essentially the exact opposite character-wise.
Vlad is the same age as Lena. But of course, none of them became council members right away. So I'm assuming the council is a few thousand years old.
Yeah,
It has
so
been it's been through several generations of vampire council members already.
it definitely predates like the Christian calendar.
Yes. So
But
we're
by how
talking
much? Like, because
So-
if we're going a few thousand years old, that means the council predates even Rome. And I mean, it would make sense if the council formed like either with the ancient Greeks or the Romans, because, well, that's one of the earlier times civilization got really organized in that area.
maybe there
So-
were so there can be several generations of 1,000-year-old vampires. However, when the council started forming, unfortunately, many of them died because they got angry at each other.
Yeah, which would, again, you learn from your mistakes, so the next iteration of the council would then learn from the previous one.
Correct. So, how long ago did the Roman Empire happen?
I mean, Rome started existing as a city/nation around 700 BC, I think.
Doesn't become an empire until quite a bit later, though.
Yeah, a few hundred years later, but still Rome as a city
How
Yes.
long ago is that?
on the Italian peninsula, that's about 2,700 years ago.
So, oh my, 2,700 years ago. So, the first vampires to. So, the first council.
Again, we don't have to take Rome. We can start in Greece and then migrate over to Rome later.
Okay. How long ago is Greece?
That's a more difficult question because Greece also existed for quite a while and I don't actually have any dates in my head, so we need to use Google really quickly.
Help, Google.
Also, since ancient Greece was, for a lot of its existence, not exactly united, would the council be established in Athens or Sparta?
Which is
Ooh.
oldest?
It doesn't really matter because both cities existed before they became really significant, but then they both became significant.
Okay, so I believe the first one was that. So we can either go Athens or what was the other one?
Sparta.
Sparta. Thank you.
I'm thinking Athens.
Are we? So we have one for
Which,
Athens.
however, that would also sort of make sense because in the conflict against Sparta, Athens was usually losing, but somehow they eventually pulled through, which would sort of make
so
sense.
it make the vampires.
Like if the vampires were just sitting there, and as soon as the Spartans got a bit too close, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, this is upsetting the status quo," and yeah, and they'd staged an intervention. And obviously, since the Greeks were like highly superstitious, it would just essentially be a miracle from the gods or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that time period is a great time to get away with supernatural shit because everybody's superstitious.
So we're going with Athens.
Then eventually, when Rome started expanding, they might have decided that they were going to bet on the winning horse and move their council over there.
Maybe they had a disagreement about it.
Maybe. Actually, yeah, we could have a sort of mini civil war where some of them remained in Athens and the others went to Rome, and then eventually, when Rome marched into Athens, well, guess who was laughing? Like,
yeah. So the second council iteration would be Rome.
but the first one was still around. Just some members decided to pack up and leave.
Because we all know that Remicus loves Rome.
Yeah.
He preferred Rome over Athens.
Well, he might have not initially, might have come around to it. You know, you can change your opinion with time. And Rome did go through a bunch of iterations, so...
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah. So this all started with 3 of us VAs. It was me, Phoenix Audio, and LaSpark Voices, also known as Spark Audios now. And we had created this story, these 3 audios for a good mutual friend of ours by the name of Mick. Mick is a really good artist in our community. And we wanted to do something to show her our appreciation. So the 3 of us worked tirelessly over the next week and a half to write 3 scripts, voice them, and edit them all. Phoenix and I spent many hours late at night Spark did all the art for it, and the audios were a hit. I think those are some of our highest grossing audios on a lot of our channels. And then Phoenix and I, while we were doing it, we were kind of spitballing ideas back and forth for how lines should go so they sound right. And then we realized this would be fun to do as an improv. So then we started the improv. And then we realized it's a lot of fun. So then people started coming and joining us. Spark had to step out because of personal issues. And so we brought in Val ZVA and Zeta Audio. It expanded past that. Then we brought in more people. GB joined us for several sessions. My own boyfriend, Dudley Spook, joined in. And now, how many people do we have on the cast?
Yeah, essentially, we just had a normal VC going, and then as he just dropped it on everybody, like, hey, do you want to be in the improv?
Yeah, and a lot of people said yes. And as a collaborative effort, because this has all been a collaborative effort this whole time, I was like, hey, no matter whatever your character is, you're going to help write the lore.
And I mean, lore is fun, so obviously, yes.
So currently,
I dare say I got the best character of the deal when it came to making lore. But...
So Remicus, the person we are talking about, that is JH. That's who voices that character. We won't spoil much. We're trying to keep it as vague as possible. But this is all season 2 stuff. Which, by the way, we just finished season 1 in the improv sessions. We are still planning season 2. Improv will 100% come back with all new voices, all new characters. Yeah. And we are going to explore more of the crossover ideas. 15 people in the cast total, as Luca has said. That's way too many. I feel like there isn't 15 of us. Is there 15 of us? Is there actually 15 of us?
I mean,
holy shit.
I mean, are there 15 characters or people? Like,
oh, there's there's 25 characters.
And there's a bunch of duplicates, so...
Yeah. Because I myself play like 4 characters. Which is...
I'm sticking with the 1.
Yeah. Thank you. We hope to start coming out with more audios and more improv sessions using this lore.
Yes, we get to channel our creativity into this a bit more.
Correct.
This world building is fun. And if you do it anyway all the time, you might as well use it for something.
Correct. Well, I've even stated that if you guys wanted to use the characters in your own concepts, you can. I know Luca's doing it. I know Zeta's doing it. Love you too, Helix. You have a good day also. Right now, Luca and Lion are arguing back and forth. I swear that they are the angry twins of the bunch, and they just like to bicker with each other.
I mean, yeah, we've got Nessie presiding over the whole thing. We've got Lion and Luca bickering, and we've got me and Zeta doing the heavy lifting with the lore.
Yeah.
Heavy lifting.
Heavy lifting. Yeah. Heavy lifting.
You
I mean,
slackers.
right now, at least.
Okay, so that's the second iteration of the council. When does the third iteration come in?
The third, in a way, it might be another split, because Rome did sort of become unstable multiple times, and one of those crises might have had the council split again.
Have it
So-
split down the Eastern Western Roman Empire
Well,
divide.
that's actually a bit later than I would have thought. I would have gone a bit
Oh.
earlier, because Rome, first crisis of the 3rd century, Rome was divided into 3 empires, but not for all that long comparatively. And then under Diocletian, they implemented the Tetrarchy, where there were 4 emperors of the Roman Empire. And eventually, 2 of them each got reunited into one title, and that became the Eastern and Western Roman Empire. So they might have split during the Tetrarchy already, or even during the crisis of the 3rd century, but that would have been a temporary split before, when those empires were destroyed, they would have reunified.
So what are we deciding, guys?
Yeah, like again, I still don't feel like I should make the final decisions. Like, I can contribute information, but the final decision is not up to me.
Where? Okay. Well, let's go back here. What's the date of when Athens was created?
Ooh, 1 sec, I'll Google that.
Help me. And then we need a time of when Rome and Athens split.
Athens was founded around the 10th century BC, but it wouldn't have become relevant until a lot later. It's been continuously inhabited since about 3000 BC, and it became irrelevant around 1400 BC.
So which date do we go with?
It's got to be sometime between when it was founded and when it became relevant.
Yeah.
I don't see vampires as going around founding cities.
Yeah, but they might pick a random city and then just settle down there, and by sheer virtue of them being there and doing their whole puppet master stuff, the city becomes relevant.
Correct. So I feel like it takes time. So how many years ago is like 2000 BC?
4,000 years ago.
That would also give the first council quite a lot of time before Rome became a thing. So Also-
We're not even talking ancient Greece. We're talking Mycenaean Greece at this point.
Yeah. then also then like the split would also make a bit more sense in a way, because Rome did
Bronze
sort of
Age
become,
collapse.
Rome did sort of become very important very quickly when compared to some other similar cities.
So that means Remicus went 6,000 years. Right? Yeah.
Just doing random shit, I guess, before deciding to organize.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
then again, it also takes a while for there to actually be enough vampires to warrant a council. Since again, like by the time he started existing, there was precisely 1 vampire, and that would have slowly expanded as those he turned would start turning other people. But
Right.
that's
So we're
Permission to
talking
scribble in- Permission to
generations.
scribble in a couple notes.
Yes. Feel free.
Yes, we can just.
Did you
say
get
by
your
the
drawing
time-
tablet out?
I've had it out for a while.
I figured.
Like, by the time the 6,000 years had passed, probably there were enough vampires running around the Eurasian continent that he started to think, yeah, maybe we should organize these people before they actually, like, cause some chaos that you can't easily fix.
I love how you changed your pen color.
I've been using blue for a while.
You always have used blue.
I mean, specifically, I've been using it on other sections of the document for a while.
Actually, you're gonna have to do some lore crafting by yourself. for a
So,
moment. I'll be right back.
Here, okay, I see ya. Here's a question: were there always 9 members, or were there more in earlier generations? Because that could
Ooh.
lead to some problems within the council during the split of the Roman Empire. Like, they would reside, like, where would they reside?
Ooh.
I feel like
Depending on what's convenient at the time.
there was, because remember, think about how large, say, like, the council around the Roman Empire. So we're like,
Right.
we're thinking about how big, like, some of the adaptations that you've seen. There's like hundreds of wealthy people in that room. So I imagine back in the day, and this was one of the reasons why Ramachus essentially cleaned out the councils, as he started realizing that maybe, say, 50 plus members here was too much. Whoop. And say here he was at like 25 members. So he
But
started
if-
wheedling them down.
If each member of the council represents one vampire family, does that mean he's going out and wiping out specific lines?
Maybe at the time it didn't. Because at the time, lineage really wasn't a thing. Because we're talking about, yeah, there's like 6,000 years in between here. But lineage is really hard to try to keep track of. See ya, Jessica. Because it could eventually just whittle down to the 9 strongest families. Because I guarantee you there were a lot of combining of families too. So essentially, marriages within families. Like normal bureaucracy type shit. When do we want this to be, the second council? So this would have been the split.
JH is more of the Roman history guy than I am.
I think he's Googling it.
To wait for JH. I want to specifically know what's happening around the Bronze Age collapse for the Vampire Council.
What would be happening? That's a good question. Like,
Suddenly, due to a wide variety of factors, basically every civilization in the region starts going into decline. What do the vampires do?
take an opportunity to take over.
But what stops them? Because we know from the fact that they didn't take over, they weren't successful.
Maybe
what
the
stops them?
maybe the humans got wise. Humans stop listening to them. Humans start doing their own things. vampires realize that not all their
Did the vampires cause the Bronze Age collapse, or are they just reacting to it?
I think they caused it. It doesn't have to be a specific thing that caused humans to be wise. Yeah, it could be as simple as they're starting to notice, oh, you're not exactly like us. This is very odd. Why are you like this? Who are you? That could be... Or, you know how I've stated that there's a poison to vampires?
That's when that's discovered.
Potentially. So
Ooh,
maybe
We've decided that the vampires caused the Bronze Age collapse.
Interesting.
So, and how it is essentially stopped, the reason why vampires don't take over everything is this poison. I'm gonna find a spot to scribble. So, there is a flower that can be made into a tea. And they found out it stops vampire effects. So, like, hypnosis.
Spelled with an E, not an A.
So, no hypnotism. Etc.
No hypnosis.
Yeah. So that's what happened here. That was discovered somewhere around here. It was just a tea. They thought the leaves would make a nice tea. Who would have thought that if a vampire drinks it, it literally kills them? And that if it's synthesized correctly, you can put it in your bullets and literally kill a vampire. Huh.
That would probably also mean that every vampire just on principle refuses to drink tea.
I could see that. I feel like they're wine drinkers.
You know, it's just not anything drinkers, because the main beverage they drink is still blood, you know, and everything
Lion
else is
asked a good
optional.
question.
I feel like it was a human. It was dumb luck.
Because the only way the vampires would have figured that out, that is if one of them used the Stone Age method of, can I eat this? I'll try, and then they promptly collapse. And if somebody else noticed that, then they might have put two and two together.
I don't think they realize it yet. It takes a bit for them to realize that humans are not as impressionable as what they used to be. Because it's not every human drinks this type of tea. If you get enough to drink it, overarching theory is they'll be they're the ones that take over everything. And that's why part of the reason the second council comes. So what time frame is this? What time?
Is the second council where Memicus figures out, I can't be a proper figurehead leader, I'm going to puppet master things as if I'm an equal to the rest of them?
I think it is.
Well, rather, the second council splits off directly from the first, but the first is still around, which means whoever's on the second council, or at least some of them, still know of the first one. So that wouldn't work. He'd only really be able to pull that off with a blank slate, which means at some point the Vampire Council needs to be essentially shattered, and he then reforms it, or at least moves some people so it reforms with him in it. And then takes up his little position of always being there, but never really being
Oh, he
noteworthy.
would purge this first council. Maybe.
Yeah, but the second one would still know of the first, so he wouldn't be able to have the puppet master role because they'd
Right,
already
he would
know
have
him.
to. So we need to find a time in history where.
Again, if we take the whole Roman thing, we can take one of the times the empire split more than in two, just make the council split apart so far that in the reunification he could make sure that the new council only consisted of the members who didn't personally know him yet.
So maybe that's the third iteration.
Crisis
third-
in the third century.
Yeah, basically, that you have a three-way split council, and he just makes sure that all the people who know how powerful he is from the second council don't make it into the third.
He kills them off.
No, not directly, but maybe he makes sure they end up in the path of something that kills them.
Yeah, because I feel like Remicus would do that. So what time frame? So when does Rome split from Greece?
Rome doesn't split. I mean,
Or like
council, or
yeah, well, like when does this happen?
right around when did Rome become significant enough that it would make sense to think that Rome would become a bigger power than, well, Athens, and therefore switch?
Yeah.
That's around the second. That's around 200 BC-ish, I think. Might be a bit before that.
Yeah, at that point, Rome has probably been around for a while, and some people have been observing it, and then eventually they say, you know what? Rome looks way more promising. Why don't we move over there? And some other people have gotten attached to gotten attached to Athens.
So maybe
So they don't want to
500
leave.
BC. Seem about right.
Now, Rome would be about 200 years old at that point, or 250.
Because they could potentially predict what's gonna happen.
Rome has basically most of the Italian peninsula by 250 BC, and then starts colonizing Carthage around 200 BC-ish.
You could say just after the Punic Wars, because the Punic Wars were kind of close for a while.
Yeah.
So it might make sense to like hold off on the move until that's decided. So that they're basically where some group of them are saying we should move the council, but they're not yet sure if they should move it to Carthage or Rome. So then they wait out the Punic Wars until,
Well,
Carthage meets Salt, and then
yeah.
the decision is made.
So then how many years ago is this?
The third Punic War was, which was the last one, was, I'm checking Wikipedia.
We're learning so much about history.
It was around 150 BC.
150?
Slightly after 150.
We'll make it a round nice number. It helps with math. So that means
We can just
this...
say around then. We don't need to give an exact number.
Yeah. So how many years ago is that? Ringo Burr.
2,173 years ago. We're now close enough that we can use actual numbers.
Is that correct? Or am I
Yeah.
dumb?
Just about, yes. We don't need to go into the final, we don't need single
what?
years here. Counting it in decades is enough. Also, because we're saying it's around 150 BC, we're not saying it's exactly then. Also, because time was using a different calendar back then, as you can probably imagine by the fact that this is BC. So they probably at this point, even the vampires don't know exactly when they moved their damn council. Or rather, Remicus doesn't because everybody else is dead. But yeah, somewhere around then they would have moved. Or at least
So
some of them would have moved to Rome.
that,
The others.
that rather notably puts roughly 2,000 years between counts. Where'd you get 950 year?
Isn't it? Or am I?
No,
Because how many years is?
2,000 to get to BC and then 150 to get after.
And add 20 more if you want to take the present day.
Okay, so. Goddamn. Okay, now to this one. When was the three-way split?
Crisis of the 3rd century. I think I don't need to tell you when the crisis of the 3rd century happened.
Let's get the exact year.
That's AD.
Yeah, that is 80.
Almost wrote BC there. Or
Which happens between 200
BCE or
and 35.
CE. But I'm going to do 80 because,
2 letters is quicker.
yeah. Well, CE, BCE, it's the same fucking thing. So, 300 years, 380.
Reminder that the 3rd century is 200 AD, not 300 AD.
So how many years ago was that?
1,800.
This is not exactly complicated maths, but we were watching Nessie playing Hogwarts yesterday, so.
Shut up! Ah!
So if all the vampires on the current council are 1,000 years old, what age were they when they were recruited?
So that's the whole thing. So the whole 1,000-year thing, we could state, wasn't really fully enacted until current council.
I know, but I'm asking about current council. When was the current council formed?
Okay,
Because-
the current.
Because
It's in the US, right?
So the current
Which means we have a set point where the council could have been founded at the earliest.
Well, no, there's been a lot of people swapped out because of the last fucking war. A lot of people died.
Right, so
This
the actual
council,
current-
the current council is literally 50 years old. Just like
Right,
the
but-
Vampire Hunter Council.
However, it did not change location with the last switch of members.
Correct.
it's still considered the same council for
Yeah,
continuity
also,
purposes.
they probably carried over more than one member from its previous iteration. Like, more
Right.
than one council member has to have survived the war. So it's essentially the same council. They just filled up the empty seats that happened to die.
Right. Because Vivian
But
is
the
new to it.
council- Yeah,
Vivian
but like the
was not
council
one.
was sort of founded when, like, at some point, probably like sometime post-independence war of the US, when they sort of realized that, yeah, this country's getting important. So somewhere 19th century, probably. Again, like,
When's the next council?
right after fourth comes after the crisis of the 3rd century with little Remicus purge and his new approach to ruling the council. What would be the next significant split? You could just say the Western Eastern Roman.
Byzantium.
Yeah, well, at that point it was the Eastern Roman Empire. It only
The
became
city was
Byzantium.
called the city was called Constantinople.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
It's
And-
been renamed a few times.
yeah, but when it was founded, it was the Eastern Roman Empire, and the Western Roman only became known as Byzantium when the Western Roman Empire fell. So there's no point in calling it the Eastern one anymore. Yeah, also, again, question, what side was Veremicus version on?
That's up to you.
I think for the little conversation we had the other day about him meeting Vlad, he has to kind of be on Eastern.
Oh yeah, because he has to meet Vlad at some point.
Yeah, so he'd have migrated over there and
Well,
then probably
actually, when did this happen?
1 second, when did Justinian the First?
Vlad is 1,000 years old.
I know, but
Yeah.
if he's
Constantinople fell, like,
Constantinople fell
in
late.
1400 something. So
Yeah.
Vlad would have been around and decent age already.
Yeah.
But that's when this council would have ended, if that's what we're going with.
Where also, because there wasn't really, like, technically there was the Holy Roman Empire, but I sort of think, like, because Remicus personally was still very attached to the idea of the Roman Empire, he probably stuck around in Constantinople until the bitter end.
He sounds like the kind of guy who would be living in Byzantium, continuing to call it the Eastern Roman Empire up until it falls. He sounds like that kind of guy.
I refuse to let this name die.
Which would also explain why he refuses to just migrate to the Holy Roman Empire, because they've stolen the fucking name.
But also,
That's not Rome.
The Holy
Like-
Roman Empire, he realizes people are dying to holy water.
Right, one more reason to stick with.
Yeah,
Well, and
holy
they were
water.
Orthodox there.
Yeah, holy water. Is toxic.
But,
It's
like-
bad.
Byzantium was Orthodox at the end, though.
Yeah,
So they were also Christian.
they were also giving the holy water.
Like, all of Rome was Christian after the split. I mean, yeah, you can definitely just avoid the churches, or at least
It
the
would be
water in the
hilarious.
churches.
Vlad is the leader of a church.
Well, you can't really.
Established that Vlad is Vlad the Impaler, so he can't really.
Well,
He's
we-
really
by
a
the
country.
by the time he becomes Vlad the Impaler, he's also a few hundred years old already.
Mm-hmm.
So he could have been, and just decided that wasn't the life for him. So he decided to start impaling people, and found his true life's calling or some shit.
Being a priest doesn't work out for me. I'll start impaling people.
Well, again, like, I can
I know,
totally
I know.
see Remicus and Vlad getting on like a house on fire when it came to kicking the Ottomans, because Remicus, who has been chilling with the Roman Empire since basically its conception until its death, is probably very unhappy and holds a bit of a teeny tiny grudge against the people who finally destroyed his cool little empire. And Vlad just, I don't know, likes killing things, I guess. So
It works.
it
when
works.
when did East and Western Rome split? Also, why did the council split specifically for the vampires?
Because Eastern and Western Rome split. Some went with Eastern, some went with Western. It makes
One
sense.
second.
There's a couple dates we could give the split. Because it did split a couple times.
Yeah, but it split under Constantine.
It split under Diocletian, and then it also split under
Yeah,
Constantine.
it split under Diocletian, but technically it was still one empire, just ruled in 4 provinces.
The Constantine split was 495. Oh, 395. 395. 395. Ooh. There would be 2 vampire councils running around at this time.
Another reason to kill one off.
I know there was a brief attempt by the Eastern Roman Empire to reclaim Rome after it fell. What if that was a little operation by Remicus to wipe out the Western Council?
Then create the 5th council.
Oh no, actually,
No, not create. You
no,
don't
no.
need to create a 5th council. You'd still have the 4th council.
Yeah, he'd stick around with a 4th, just there was now a rival 4th one, and it was no longer based on, like, the Western Roman Empire, so essentially he would see them as traitors, because Rome good. And even
Nope.
if they failed to reclaim Rome, that council no longer existed afterwards.
That's 195 minus that. So 705. Am I doing that math right?
Nope,
It needs to be
1605.
1605. I knew exactly the problem the moment you said it. So not quite in time for Vlad.
Correct 4th council to say 4th councils. Because there's 2 rival councils now. There we go. And I need to look up the specific date of that one time the Eastern Roman Empire tried to reclaim Rome, so we can
I think
say
it
that's
was,
when.
That's the 5th council. Or that's the creation of
No, that's not the 5th council. That's the 4th council continuing without a rival.
Yeah.
I will note that down on the thing when I find the date. You continue coming up with when, like, 5th council up until modern council.
Okay, so when does the 5th council happen? Now, if you notice where these ages, the reason I'm doing these years is potentially at this point, the first council, there could be some vampires up to 6,000 years old. Like, during this council. By this time, there's, like, none over... Oh, I have no idea. We could say none over, like, 3,000. And that's because
Also,
slowly as the time's gone on, the older vampires have literally been killed off by Ramicus. And
Yeah.
or have died of their own causes.
yeah, but looks like, again, if he wants to be a puppet master, pawns are useful, but if they become too powerful, they become unpredictable.
Correct.
So,
So we're talking like oh god.
he's playing a delicate balancing game between making sure none of the vampires are actually powerful enough to pose a threat to him, but also making sure vampires as a whole stay strong enough to not get wiped out entirely.
Correct. It's why he is a master strategist.
So he has to keep the balance, which also means that the fact that the 50 Years' War was not a decisive conflict is really fucking significant.
Yes. Which I love. Also, I see there are 20 people currently watching. Hello, everyone. Welcome to
Like
the
20?
stream. Yeah, 20 people.
The last time I checked, about 2.
It says 20 on my end.
Oh, I'm reloading the chat 1 sec.
Says 3 on my end.
Yeah, there's 3 on my end.
That is so frustrating. It's telling me wrong numbers. That's so weird. Oh well.
Well,
Anyway, 3 people is still 3 people. So.
Yeah, 3 people are still 3 people.
One of them might be me, but and Zayden.
Oh well.
Anyway,
Oh,
this
well.
is
Oh, that is a whole other thing. When did Levi start wanting to destroy his creation?
Ooh.
I think that is a that
I
is a
might actually
Put a pin in that for when we've finished establishing
literally,
the
I was
council
just
timeline.
like throwing out there, like maybe around the Bronze Age collapse, if the vampires caused that,
Ooh,
because if that would have been the first time the vampires as a whole flexed their muscles,
ooh, that works.
might have been the moment where he realized, ah, shit.
That
well,
works.
maybe that's so. You know the whole holy-esque thing. So Catholicism and shit like that, holy water, etc., etc. The angels and God Himself started noticing the things.
Lion put an interesting note in chat.
That's possible. Possibly lead them to a flower.
Yeah, because that would absolutely be the sort of thing a deity-like being would do, is indirectly do something, because
Correct.
they can't actually be bothered to do it themselves.
So, when did Catholicism start?
You could argue a few different dates.
Yeah, but like as an actual significant, it was Constantine the Great, because he became the first Christian Roman emperor. And
So
could
we're
argue
talking
that's-
Fourth Council, around Fourth Council.
You could also argue that's not when Catholicism started because the Orthodox Church hadn't split yet.
yeah, but like Christianity existed.
Yeah.
already,
Or I
and
should
the
say, when
Orthodox
did
Church-
holy water become a thing? Does anyone know?
Probably with Christ. Just
Holy water.
with Jesus.
When
So
is
around
that
like,
in
like
Europe?
around year 0 or year 30, I don't know, whenever he died, I presume.
How holy water started. In ancient Greek religion, holy water, called turnips, was created when a torch from a religious shrine was extinguished in it. In Greek religion, purifying people and locations with water was a part of the process of distinguishing the sacred from the profane.
That's going even further back.
That is going, yeah.
That's
So
a process thing. That
the use of holy water in the earliest days of Christian era is attested by documents of only comparatively late date. The apostolic constitutions, the redaction of which goes back about year 400, attributed to Apostle Saint Matthew the concept of using holy water. So we are getting close to holy water here. Potentially. So maybe it takes a few times for things to start. So an angel gives...
I like the idea that it's something that's created by a process rather than just being around.
So an angel gets involved there. So then an angel gets involved here. With holy water. Let me click on it.
Well, in a way, if holy water gets involved somewhere around the Fourth Councils, that, if we're talking about when the Fifth Council happened, It might be that that's just about when Remicus decided, it might be a good idea if we kept a bit of a lower profile as a council.
Correct.
Since up to now,
Timing-wise,
they've all been right in the fucking action.
timing-wise, that works out for when. So when does the fifth council pop
Actually,
up?
hold up, funny idea. What if there, like, in a sense, wasn't really a fifth council where just Remicus and, maybe a handful of trusted people just decided, we're not going to form a council, we are just going to hide in the ass end of nowhere and wait for all of this to cool down before we
So-
start to reestablish order.
An interregnum.
An interregnum where he essentially let the humans think they had the upper hand again in the conflict, and sort of let everything cool down, so they let down their guard, and then he eventually returned and quietly re-established order over the vampires with the handful of other people.
Because this could also be when Levi got angry. Or gets sus.
Yeah, you could just call it like the Shadow Council, because they're not doing anything.
They're not particularly located anywhere either.
Yeah, like they're just moving around, keeping a very, very low profile. Just also exploring the world, because they haven't done all that much of that yet.
True. So what
So
time
now
frame?
that like we've reached the time frame where people sort of start to realize that the world is a lot bigger than they thought. So
But what causes the transition from fourth council to fifth council?
well, probably the fall of Constantinople.
That works.
So what time frame is that? Or what time? What time is that?
1400 something.
1453.
1450 Because now we're really getting close to the time. Because
Yeah,
this could be
6.
when. So those older end of those vampires.
This casually makes the fourth council the most successful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, again, also, like, we're talking also, fourth council might just refer to Remicus' side of things, because Western Rome was not stable, so they might have had multiple iterations on that side, just they kept having
Yeah, but
only one.
that still gets dealt fairly early on in the over 1,000-year time period that the fourth council lasts.
Yeah, but again, like, I mean, Byzantium isn't really doing much for most of its existence. It just, at some point, it starts losing territory, and that's about it.
It's 570 years ago, Nessie.
Shut up!
570.
570.
That is not correct!
It
Is it?
is.
Do
It
the
is
math
correct.
yourself.
Shut up. Okay. So this council has
think
to
at this
be
point-
this has to be created during the start of the US. It has
Sixth
to be.
council has to be current council at this point.
No, because it's not. It's not.
It is the same count. It's got
It's
different
technic-
members, but it's the same one.
You can't tell me the fourth council in all of its existence did not once have one of its members die. But it still remained the same council. Because they didn't entirely reform the damn thing somewhere else.
Fine. So
It is
this
the same
is
council, just with different members.
current council. So then with this one, so with the fifth council, at that point, Remicus started deciding
Things are
That was-
things are looking things are looking good on that new continent.
Yeah,
Maybe if we set ourselves up early, we can.
Yeah, also again, because the vampire hunters haven't established themselves yet.
No, because
So if the
they
vampires get there first, they can dig in.
So that would be 1600 some.
And again,
when
like,
did Christopher
I would-
Columbus sail?
Before the fall of Constantinople. No, slightly after.
Well, again,
Oh, no.
like it took a while before things actually got rolling over in
Yeah,
on the Americas. So
the vampires aren't going to be the first people across.
yeah, but once they realize that that's becoming an actual developed region, because again,
Ra-
right now,
Rather
like
than looking up when Columbus went across, look up when the first colonies started being thingy.
yeah, because like Fifth Council is the Shadow
First.
Council, which means they don't actually exist, but eventually they're going to have to settle down somewhere and officially reform the actual council.
Okay, so the first colony was founded in Jamestown in 1607. Plymouth was in 1620. And then of course 1773 is when we actually become. Yeah.
Yes, I would actually just say like around 1700.
Yeah, 1700 makes more sense.
So around then, it's like the way I envision it right now. The Fifth Council is essentially just Remicus with his buddies doing a world tour. The Sixth Council is them deciding, all right, we've waited long enough, time to settle down again. So he and his buddies settle down in the US, and then they start, first of all, setting down roots, fortifying themselves, making sure that whatever problems they had in Europe didn't happen again. And then, like, essentially, most of his friends, in quotation marks, then died in the 50 Years' War, and then came the current people.
The Revolutionary War. They had a hand in it.
But they didn't have a stake in it. Stake.
Yes, kind of they did. Because of religion.
I mean, also, I suppose a new fledgling state is easier to manipulate than part of an empire.
Maybe hunters at this point were starting to become more prevalent in Europe.
Or just the British had organized hunters, the Americans didn't. So they wanted the British the hell away from America. And just then they would make sure that the American hunters never really took off. So that would give them a good incentive to make sure that the British fuck off.
Correct. That would bring us up really close. And then, of course, once things started settling down, more people came over. I want to make a world map and kind of divvy out where a lot of these places are. Because I have a description of how the war kind of started, but I kind of want to, like, work it out better.
But yeah, just, I mean, it's right now, it really makes sense. Like the transition from 4th to 5th to 6th, like that really works.
Yeah, it does.
Like you have the 4th, and you have the interregnum with the 5th, which is just not even actually a council in a way. And then you have the 6th one, which is essentially the 5th, just in organized this time. And then the 6th goes through a major revision after the war when a lot of its members died.
So I feel like these two... Give me colors. Here, Remicus was testing out stuff.
Yeah.
At this point, he knew something had to change.
Yeah, but also that's when he became the puppet master in a sense and didn't overtly lead the council anymore.
Correct. And then slowly it just got better till we get to current times, which is here.
Which again, in the 1700s, was still staffed with essentially the exact same people as the Fifth Council. But yeah, we know what happened. to
And
those.
then
We could even have a couple Fourth Council people still around.
But yeah, maybe one or two. But
well
and they would have joined pretty late, probably.
at Sixth Council time, there's 9 families.
Oh, 9 seats, rather.
Or 9
There are probably
seats.
more vampire families out there, and just whenever one of those families happened to die out, he'd just go and look for another one, or send someone else to look for another one.
Yeah.
And like when all vampire like there exist more families, and all of them are sort of aware that the council exists, and like therefore also being invited to the council is sort of a big deal,
Right.
even if it's for most of them hasn't actually happened in their lifetime.
Yeah, there are 9 families, and he thinks is the strongest of them all, which is why we get whatever the
And
families
no,
are.
this wouldn't strictly just be like power strongest. It would be like politically strongest, influentially
Just-
strongest.
The 9 families the others are most likely to follow. Which is why it makes sense that some of the people who are on the current iteration as we have planned it are there. Or already were there before the war, because like having Vlad the fucking Impaler on the council is sure a fucking power move, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dracula
And
himself.
even if Dracula himself like only twiddles his fucking thumbs all day, just having him sit on the
He's
council
there.
gives him legitimacy.
Willing to lead.
And Ramicus needs the council to have legitimacy because he isn't providing any. He has obscured his history to the point where he has 0 effect on people.
Well, he has a little bit of effect on people.
Yeah,
gets
but I mean,
power.
he is obviously old, but it's too vague to really be tangible power for him.
Right.
Because, like, how much can you really, like, respect someone you don't know anything about? Like, they know he's old, so obviously he has some things going for him if he survived long enough. But
So, what I would have to say is before we... So, this whole section, this bit right here, this will be really important for everyone writing their characters' backstories when it comes down to the vampires. Like, this is big. Because you have to think about that... Hey, Pico,
Hello, Pico.
we're in a stream, by the way. We're doing lore.
fair warning.
Yep. Oh,
Yep,
Pico left.
there we go.
Yeah. I didn't move us to the stream chat because I totally forgot to.
Anyway,
Anyways.
oh, there's Pika again.
Pika, do you hear me? I don't think Pika... We're in a
Ah.
stream, love.
Oh, sorry.
All good.
Do you want me?
It's up to you.
Stick
It's just
around.
that we're doing a lot of lore stuff, and so we're trying to focus on it. Probably
Okay.
should have made it an event.
Yeah, I really thought you guys were hanging out. I forgot.
No, I have. That's why that you got an alert that I was streaming. Let me.
Oh,
Lore dump stream. Hello, Karaz. Welcome, welcome, welcome. What time is it? It's currently... There we go. Aha. Okay, anyway, let's go back to this. This whole area will assist greatly for anyone creating their characters. Because, so... 1,000 years ago, puts many of the council members, current council members, here.
Hold up, Lord Dumbstream.
Lord Dumbstream. We're keeping it. I refuse to change.
Right. Anyway, back on point.
Back on point. Come on, guys. Let's go. So we are current people. Most are alive at this point.
Yeah. So
Or they're
some of them
they're starting to become alive.
Yeah, so it's during the Fourth Council. So they're sort of aware that the council existed and then ceased to exist for a while.
Well, maybe many of their leaders-esque people who created them.
Were the
Yeah, we're
Fourth
a part of the Fourth Council.
Yeah, again, they have to have survived the interregnum somehow. And I presume the interregnum, since that's what it's supposed to be right now, is
Yeah.
a time where the vampire hunters flourished the most.
I added a little bit to the bottom.
To what?
Right, real small.
Can't. I might not have to go to the document myself to look at.
Okay, so yeah. Truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
They got their asses kicked, severely. And
Which,
that's
for
because
obvious
of
reasons,
organization of the vampire hunters. Is that, look what happens when we're actually fucking organized. Maybe we should learn from the Brits. We finally learned.
Yeah, so essentially the whole situation got out of hand a little bit, and now Remicus is in damage control mode.
Until the war gets an actual name, I'm going to write it as the war trademark.
It's the 50 Years' War.
Exactly 50 years, so...
There. Named. Ta-da.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That was a name, forever ago.
It's that's literally in the lore section on the server. That's what it's named.
And ironically, at the 100-year mark, so we're talking, the next set is at 2023.
So yeah, essentially we're talking we're at the
World
50-year
War
anniversary of the vampires getting their ass kicked, and
It's
now
not
they're
World
doing...
War II, Nessie.
It is World War II.
Yeah, so now basically we're doing a status report of what's happened since we fucked up.
There we go.
Woo.
Current. We've made it to fucking current times, guys.
Hey!
Hey!
We're so productive.
We are so productive. This has taken
Yeah,
us
we have
2
a lot of-
hours.
Yeah, we have a lot of really cool lore now.
Yeah.
It was a really spontaneous idea, but I have everyone know I am incredibly proud of the Shadow Council idea.
Shadow
I like
Council.
it.
I like it. Because when you go to write your lore, JH, and you go to...
You get to figure out what you're doing during all
What
this.
are
Basically,
you
also-
doing?
Also, I essentially get to create the first 3 to 4 councils if I want.
Yeah.
Correct. Who's going to be in it? What family? We know the families of current times.
But
But
I
who are those
presume
past
most, if
councils?
not all of them, were not present in the earliest iterations.
No,
I mean the
they
first
didn't-
3 obviously not.
They
But the
100%
fourth-
didn't... Yeah, they were here.
Maybe they were in the 4th at that point, but
Some of them were.
at at some point during the Fourth Council's existence.
'Cause
And
I
again,
think wh-
some members will have gotten switched out.
Yeah, because I think we've explained a few. I know Luca's lore, the Lee family has had a few iterations because of infighting within the Chinese area.
China.
The China. Oh yeah, 100%. So the Lee family is one of those. Cause when was China discovered?
I mean,
a few
technically,
different times,
technically the Romans discovered China.
but then forgot about it.
Yeah, well, the Romans not necessarily. The Romans kind of, disappeared, or
So-
during one of the many chaotic phases, they sort of forgot that China was there.
So that could be anywhere between the second, the third, and the fourth iteration of the council that there was.
I'm just gonna say, as far as I remember, the first time Rome sent ambassadors to China was during the reign of, drumroll, Antoninus Pius.
Oh,
So,
that's the one you wanted Remicus to be an advisor to.
yes, well spotted. Which means he
this is the
definitely
progeny.
knows that China exists, which also means that during the Shadow Council time, he could have just taken all his friends and fucked off to China for a while.
Hello,
That
there,
works.
there's the Lee family. So this is the first vampire. So that you know. Created by Leviathan. And yes, this is the demon Leviathan.
Yeah, Lion also asked the question, did Remicus ever encounter Leviathan again after being created? I mean,
Yes.
he definitely knows about Leviathan because, Shadow Council time period, so...
Yeah, I feel like he would run into him here. He would run into him at some point during the Fifth Council. I feel that
Or
would
rather,
be like...
towards the end of the Fourth Council and just the fall of
They
Constantine.
can have a few meetings with each other.
Just he has to be aware of the fact that Leviathan is slowly getting suspicious, and that leads to the decision that the Fifth Council would be the Shadow Council.
Correct.
To sort of shift suspicion away and let the whole slowly building up situation of fear of vampires cool down again. And again, since the world is getting at that point increasingly more global and less regional, it would make sense to just take a while, explore the planet a bit, get a better lay of the land, so to speak. Yeah, also, but then again, Luca, China might be fucking huge, but someone like Remicus also sticks out like a red sore fucking thumb.
And also, Levi is kind of, for lack of a better word, a demon.
I mean, yeah, Remicus is old as fuck. He probably has ways to avoid detection, but...
So, we've essentially created all the vampiric lore.
Roughly.
Roughly. We don't have to go into to get to the war and stuff. We don't have to go into
Didn't we
that.
want to do the war today?
Yeah, that's not happening. Cause guys, we have the werewolves to go into. We have the fae. Whose handwriting is this? Someone. Zeta. Zeta.
Why
Zeta.
are you putting the blame on me?
Doesn't really look like Zeta's handwriting though. It's not blocky enough.
I see. I see there have been other characters added. That's a Y. Your E's. How about your A's? It's 100% Zeta's handwriting. Because if it was my handwriting,
Are you in?
that's how I write it. All my Y's are like that. And my letters, especially like with my F, like anything that has lines in it, never touches. Just so you know.
Did you have to erase it?
Yes.
I didn't add anything else to any of the other ones, if that's why you're checking.
That's 100% why I'm checking. Which one do we want to go through next?
No, which one do you feel like?
That one wasn't me. That one wasn't me.
Who could that have been? I wonder.
I wonder who.
Not like there's initials right next to it. I mean, I refer to the image.
I don't know how to get rid of this.
Should I?
Okay, we could do elves. Because we wanted to, for lack of a better word, use the elves in the next audio. Yes, there are witch covens. I should really sort these. So vampires are together, witches are together, those were together, versus the rest.
Oh yeah. Also, if we're getting into magic, though, you better have an airtight system, or I'm going to pick it apart.
So who do we go after? Who do we go next? So out of all of these, the witch covens, this group I just kind of named, it's in quotations because there's a lot of different creatures within that. These two are the least organized. The rest are fairly organized.
Should we also add like a demon page in the creatures?
Oh, I should. Demons and angels.
Also, if there's a mage guild and witch covens, presumably they have different forms of magic. Because witches are usually more like ritualistic in nature, whereas mages tend to be like a bit more. I don't know what to call it. I guess scientific is the wrong word for it, but a more established system.
So no, the demons have only interacted with vampires. Yeah. So the angels didn't mess around with a lot of stuff because they kept away. However, Leviathan was like, hey, I want to get back at Michael and all the other angels for all the bullshit that they pulled. They didn't really interact with the human world. They caused menace and chaos, but that was about it. I'll answer your question there, Zeta. It was a secret question, guys. Hello, Echo Writing. Welcome to the stream. I need to go back into my character and grab the characters here. Maybe how we can do it is
Are we going to do it so there's like the same number?
because of course Michael is the head angel. have Gabrielle. I spelled that wrong. We had Raphael. Uriel. So those are for the angels. Damn it. Christ. So those are those 5. And we don't necessarily have to make them be the same. Like, same amount. Oh yeah, we have a whole thing. And it's not necessarily a spreadsheet, it's called it's a notebook. So essentially we're all writing in the same notebook instead of passing it around. We could write family lines about each one of them here. Because essentially the entire Vampire Council, it's convoluted at best. Like, what families constituted to get to where the 8 families are today. It's a lot. We don't have to go into that. We just have to go into the current families. However, the angels and the demons, actually, the angels in particular, have very short lineages, while the demons don't have as many. Because also many of the demons haven't attempted. So we have Lucifer. We have Leviathan. What other demons are there? Time to Google.
Lilith.
Are we using the Greek or the Roman names?
Either or.
Because there's one in Greek, it's Apollyon, and in Roman, it's Abaddon. I think it was this way around or the other way. I can't remember. Either way, both names sound cool.
In the Scalies bit, maybe Wendigos can come out. Curious. Okay. So we have... So this is the list I used. So we have... Mammon. Asmodeus. Beelzebub. Satan. And Belphegor. So this is Pride. Leviathan is Envy. Is Greed. Asmodeus is Lust. Beelzebub is Gluttony. Satan is Wrath. Belphegor is Sloth. So it was Envy that he was quite envious. So those are the vampires we're working with. That's very true, Echo. Okay.
It's bothering me that the character names aren't alphabetical order. Can I have permission to fix it?
Sure.
I'm gonna keep both of my universe characters at the bottom anyway, but everyone else is getting alphabetized.
Oh, you're talking about the character, those
Yeah.
characters.
I'll alphabetize this as well. No, the creatures are alphabetized as well.
Oh, I didn't want that alphabetized, though. Ah. There was a reason I had them split into groups. I had them split into the good guys and the bad guys. It's fine. I can deal with it. Okay. Yes, that's a word. Assholishness.
Assholity.
Assholishness. So those are the demons. So we got angels down. So he's the asshole. He's the nice one. What did we name the other one? Sometimes asshole. Oh god, my writing there. Holy fuck. Oh my. Yeah, we're not having that here. We're not having the two characters from opposing groups act pretty chill with each other. There is a clear, definitive line. Like, this isn't the first time that there's been a war. This isn't the first time that shit's gone down, unfortunately. So, that's that group. Now, we wanted to talk on the elves, because I know Zeta had an
I had a
idea.
couple ideas.
Yeah, and I threw up some ideas. I need to get that document. To read my notes, I did it like midnight.
Right, sorry, I was gone for a little bit.
It's okay.
Now there's 3 talking people again.
We kind of
where
did
are we?
angels and demons.
Okay.
So I wrote several notes here. You have responded to one of them.
I did, yes.
He's pissed at Remicus for the war. So, bottom line, elves are assholes. That's what we're coming to the agreement on. I'm looking at my text messages real fast. I'm back. Okay. So, how do we want to do elves, guys?
I don't know.
Assholes.
I mean, my instinct is to just say they're kind of isolationists, so I don't have to bother with
Yeah.
them.
Do they exist in like a separate pocket universe, or are they?
No, they're in the same universe.
They're just really good at hiding.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Could also do a trope reversal and have them hide underground and not be in the trees for once.
Ooh.
They're not dwarves.
Yeah, again, trope reversal.
Inside a rock,
Kind of funny, wouldn't it?
earth is a cradle, a mountain shall become a tomb.
I mean, again, like the Elder Scrolls sort of did it because they had one race of elves in quotation marks that primarily lived underground.
Yeah, but that race of elves was also dwarfs.
They were called dwarfs, but they were technically the Dwemer of the Deep Elves.
Yeah, that they were only called dwarfs because the giants were the first things that encountered them.
Yeah. And because probably at some point the devs got the shit confused, so they just made up a reason so they could keep calling them the dwarves. So yeah, world building generally, when you look at some of the game fantasy universes, is
Yeah.
both great and kind of funny how they came to some of those points.
Okay, that is me done the things for my 4 characters. Woo. Wait,
just
no, I've still got one character to add. Damn it.
like random little factoid for people who don't know it yet. The setting of the Dragon Age universe, Thedas, is
The Dragon
literally
Age setting.
the DA setting, like Thedas. That's how they named it. And it works, that's the best part.
Yeah, it sounds like a fantasy continent.
Yeah.
I'll write down that character's lore later. Because I need to think through it.
Yeah, I was about to say there's so much. We have to kind of think through this shit.
But I've got 4 of my 5 characters written down.
I kind of want to find a world map. Put it into paint. And then color it in. For each race. As well as like areas that have been contested. So like the Roman Empire has kind of been contested between the vampires and the humans for like millennia. Millennia.
Yeah, I sort of surmised that's what you meant to say.
I was eating a cookie. I could do that. Make an area of called maps. Current time. Actually, I don't want to do current time. I want to do the 50 Years War. Right? Because I need the outline of
Events.
events, yeah. Rude.
I am going to order some food.
You do that.
I am hungry.
Random question, by the way, because I just realized it. Where exactly in the US is the Vampire Council actually located?
So currently the story is taking place, I believe we decided in Canada.
Did we? No, because Phoenix said he would like need to fly to Canada. To do his thing.
Okay. So then, yeah, it is the United States. Then I don't think we
Yeah,
ever
but, like,
decided.
where is
It's an unknown location.
Nondescript location.
Yeah, it has. All we know is that there's some redwood forest.
Intentionally
there.
vague.
So potentially it could be in California area.
Intentionally vague TM.
Okay, I didn't exactly think that it was going to be this big.
So I made a little map thing of like the rough movement of the Vampire Council.
Ooh,
Nice.
Can I see?
It's in the Sanguinist chat.
So we have.
I didn't include all the shoot-off councils because that would have gotten confusing really fucking quickly.
Hello.
Especially because, well, at some point there were multiple in one place. But
Can someone name off all the creatures for me?
what's that?
Werewolves, vampires,
1 second. Werewolves. Vampires. Fae.
angels, demons.
Pixies.
Although I imagine angels and demons are the point where you get a metaphysical.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
exactly need to know where they are. Mages. Is that all of them?
Do. Which werewolves, vampires, yep, that's all of them,
Sweet.
minus the metaphysical ones.
Yeah, I'm not doing metaphysical. Oh. I am missing one kind of. I don't know what color to do it. I guess pink. Where would the elves be? Purple.
Do we want to pull a Lord of the Rings reference and say New Zealand?
So they'd be like over here. I have to find New Zealand. There.
It's down by Australia.
Yeah. It would count for the isolationism.
It would. New Zealand was one of the last large pieces of land to be inhabited by people.
We could say New Zealand and Australia. I think the Fey realm is unironically Antarctica.
Ooh. I picture Fays having little pockets all over the place.
I guess, yeah. So this could be the Elven realm right here. The werewolves are the same way. They have like little pockets. Same with the
You'll
witches.
You'll find a lot of the ones that aren't a unified group or like that.
Mages are in Scotland. Disagree with me?
Don't have a lot of like. We don't have a lot of like wizard myths. We don't have a lot of like wizard myths. There would absolutely be like a massive pocket of Fae in like the Celtic countries, though.
Yeah.
Like that can be like their main pocket.
So main pocket is like in here. Can't exactly be accurate with how small this is.
Doesn't need to be that accurate, just
Fey realm.
it works, it works, it works.
I give aneurysm.
Not so much an aneurysm as unexpectedness, but it works, it works.
So the Vampire Hunter Society. We have one here. Where's this area? We have one here. We have one in here somewhere. I don't know why it's not covering on top in some colors, but in others it is. Like, that works. Okay. I'm watching also the time because it's getting a little late. This might be a good place to stop. Let our brains relax. We can start thinking more about the map.
But I have not finished ordering my food yet.
You can still
So
continue
you
to
need
order
to do
your
that on
food.
stream?
Why do you have to? Yeah.
Also, I made another map.
I like that. Yes.
Now you're doing all the little offshoots.
Yeah, again, I can't fit them on one map because if you had the
Yeah.
east-west split, would be doubling it on Rome.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I like it.
Anyways, everyone have a wonderful day. Let's sync now. Make sure everything is synced. Updating. E. Oop. There we go. Everyone, have a fantastic day. Thank you all for coming. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've had a lot of fun. We've gotten pretty far in some of the lore bits, and there's so much more to do. So, everyone, have a safe day. Love you all, and bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios.